Hello, folks. This is Ahwan from Cineblues, and I am pleased to have author and former India Today journalist, Mr. Anirudhya Mitra, whose book 90 Days, based on the true story of the hunt for Rajiv Gandhi assassination, was launched recently. The book is a definitive and a blow-by-blow account of how the CBI's Special Investigation Team cracked the assassination plot and chased the mastermind Sivarasan to his final hideout. The deaths caused by the cyanide consumption of the members of the hit squad left several unanswered questions. And on the 6th of September, I was thrilled to see on the social media that his book is now being taken, the rights of this book has been taken by Applause Entertainment, who are planning or who have decided to make this book into a web series, and it will be helmed by director Nagesh Kuklu. So please welcome Mr. Anirudh Mitra to our show. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. And we also have our guest today on this forum, Mr. Debashish Chatterjee and Mr. Sanat Mohanty, who will be also interacting with Mr. Mitra, and they are having several questions. We know we will be having a good discussion from now on. So first tell me, you were a journalist, right? And you actually covered the account when the post-mortem, we can say, after Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, and you were working for India Today that time. And it's been close to 30 years,
right?
Rather than more
than 30 years. Actually.
More than 30 years. And it was on the, I think on the 15th July 1991 that your story was first featured in the India Today magazine. So what made you to write a book after 30 years?
Yeah, that's a question. The very first question my publisher asked me when I approached them.
Okay.
It's a very obvious question. See, what happened was that it was a sensational case.
Yes.
And I covered this case, investigated the assassination almost for more than a year while working in India Today. And several times I thought that I'll probably write a story or write a book or something like that. And then it was not for long that I continued in journalism, but I switched to television and films.
Yeah.
And I was with UTV. And at that point of time, my boss, Ronnie Struvala and Zarina Mehta, they had heard about my background, of course, in India Today. And I think Zarina accidentally ran into some clips, from India Today. And it carried one of my stories. And she read it and she said that this is like, absolutely explosive material. Why haven't you done anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
I said, do what? I mean, I'm not a journalist any longer. I just do read what other people write on, follow-ups on the investigation. She said, no, I think it calls for a series, a mini series. Those days, nobody called it, there's nothing called web series. So, and she said, I want to read more. So I gave her all my clippings and everything that I wrote for about 1.5 years. And she went through it. And in fact, Ronnie fixed up a meeting with Shekhar Kapoor.
Okay.
And I went and presented the story to him. This is all sometime in 97, 98. And then he said he's already aware of it. And obviously he was quite busy with a whole lot of other things. And he said, we'll give it a thought. And again, I was too busy with my work in UTV and things that were already on air, including Seahawks. So I didn't pay much attention to it as usual. And, it just went by. But it immediately, created some kind of a noise it made. For example, the great actor, Sadashiv Amrapurkar, he read about it in some newspaper and he called me and he said, I want to play the role of Sivarasan. Don't you think I look like him?
Okay.
So I tried to tell him that, sir, the uniqueness of Sivarasan was that his profile and his, frontal view are very different. When you see him face to face, it's one thing. But if you see his profile, he looks quite different. I mean, he was born with that speciality, which probably helped him later on, to be in disguise. Anyway, so I'm saying that, and over a period of time, whenever I go to a friend's place or a small gathering, people often ask me that, "Aapne kabhi likha tha, baad mein kuch nahi kiya. What about this? What about that?" And I try and give them something that probably, I held back. I couldn't write for want of proof or something. And I also Because I was narrating the story to Applause, and I found that the younger lot, they were listening to me rapt attention. They are already aware of it. They know about LTT. They know about IPKF and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of gave me. It really encouraged me that if I can connect with the younger generation, I think it will be fun to try to make an attempt. And that's how I got down to writing the book. And like I was, because I shifted from non-fiction to fiction writing, I also learned to whatever extent I have learned, the art of writing a thriller. So I thought that people have already read about it a lot
Yes.
in newspapers, in magazines. There have been books. There have been books by the best possible authorities. I mean, a book was written by D.R. Karthikeyan, who was the head of the SIT. Okay, a book was that is Raghotaman. A book was written by Nina Gopal, ex-India Today journalist, and I think there are one or two others. I'm talking about those which are in English, and there are quite a few in Tamil. So I thought that no harm in giving it a try. And I got down, so I took that approach of writing it like a thriller. The fact that I have taken everybody's name, not a single name has been changed, name, place, everything, time. So therefore it is non-fiction. But otherwise, my approach was that to write it like fiction.
Okay. And now that it is being made to a web series, which is to be directed by Nagesh Uknur, one of the best directors in our film fraternity, how does it feel?
Right. Oh, it feels great. Well, Nagesh is a very good director. He goes under the skin of the characters.
Yeah.
And it is very important to know that in a series, I mean, you do need a plot, you do need a good story. But I think what is critical is the ensemble of characters. That unless your viewer is hooked to the characters and want to know their journey, it may not work. So Nagesh is just brilliant in all those departments.
Fantastic. We have Debashish Chatterjee on our forum today. Sir, would you like any questions to be asked from your side?
So my first question is, Anirudh, that when you make this thing a movie, I think the most difficult part will be to enact the character of Sivarasan.
I think you are absolutely right.
Because in your book, in your book, we don't see much of conversation about Sivarasan. About Sivarasan is there, but through Sivarasan. And obviously it is missing because this is the actual thing what you have written. Because he was always in the dark room.
Correct. I think you are like spot on with your question. You're absolutely spot on with that question. I think Nagesh is continuously thinking about it, that how he wants to go about it, how he wants to handle. So he is obviously in a discussion with almost everybody. And it's being worked upon that how to go about this. But yes, it is a fact that the least we know is about Sivarasan. And everybody. I mean, it's not very difficult to dig up his past. But what happened post 21st May 1991 is the toughest part. Because what we know is what we have heard from those who were in custody. So what they spoke was basically, and everybody was kind of rounded up, except Sivarasan and his gang who were on the run, Shubha, Nehru, and a few others, three others. Everybody was in CBI's custody in about 11 days max. Everybody got arrested. So post that, they have got no clue. So what we know about Sivarasan is that what happened that night, what happened soon after, he was trying to get out of the camera, and then they go to Tirupati, they come back. After that, we don't know. And this, nobody knows who were, like Santhan was there for some time with him, but still, this is a huge mystery. So a lot of research is being done, a lot more. I consider it necessary in my book because I took the approach of a crime procedural. So in procedural, you do not see the characters on their own. You basically go through the procedural, right? And you get to hear about, it's like a looping. You get to know about B from A, you get to know about C from B, and you get to know about D from C. That's how you progress. So I took that approach in the book. And to be very honest, one of the reasons to take that approach was to be a little on the safe side, because I don't want people filing cases against a book, because it's a factually accurate book, and that was the biggest challenge. And for this book, to write this book, it's not just, I don't know how many of you remember what was published in India today, but it's not a compilation of what was published in India today. It is common knowledge that India Today wrote a lot, and a whole lot of other magazines, including the Hindu, Frontline, and everyone else. But I did a lot of research to write this book, just to be able to give as much as possible I can give them fresh. But I could not get much on Sivarasan, to be honest with you. So again, he's being researched upon, and let's see. We hope to satisfy your curiosity, because that's a very critical point. You're absolutely right.
Thanks.
Sanath, we have Sanath also on our line on our show.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mitra, for giving some time. And
Let's call me Anirudhya.
Yes, thanks for your time. And I think it's a fantastic book. Like, we love to read things. And when I was reading this book, I literally got goosebumps, right? And I feel through the characters, and it is like you are, as if like some of the conversations that you have been written in the book when the characters are talking, or the investigations, I feel like, okay, the person is, I'm sitting in the room and I'm visualizing what's happening, how the discussions are going. So it's excellent. Thank you, sir. It's a really, thanks, Anirudhya, for a great book. So, okay, so my question here is, what I want to going through the book, I was reading something, what I feel, there is a mystery, there is a ghost, right, which is somewhere is running behind the scenes, and they know basically things what happened, or what, there is some characters in the establishment, I feel they knew what is going on, right? So maybe is there a sense they knew there is something is going to happen and they have not, or they have been informed the respective security agencies saying, okay, this is, be careful, this is something happening, but somehow we feel like there is a, you can say, miscommunication or taking things granted, where like we see like such a tragedy kind of things happen. So I got that sense, like maybe I've heard it, but I think there is something is loose end, which is still we don't know.
You're talking about before the assassination, after the assassination?
Before the assassination. Before the assassination, I think some of the agencies, some of the persons, and some people, they must have knew what's happening in the behind.
I think your suspicion is correct. There's no doubt about it. It has been written about also in books, in stories, articles over the years. And there is a sense of it, like, as you say, that it is there in my book also. See, what happens is that there's no doubt that information about something going to happen, something may happen, has been there. But the irony of multiplicity of security agencies is that the lack of coordination doesn't allow them to collate information and come to a conclusion. So what happens is that agency X may have a certain information which must go to, say, agency Y or Z to be able to take some action. But I think, there is this whole slip between the lips and the cuff. And like I said, how often government agencies work, how they interpret a particular information differently, how every single security agency collect their own intelligence and therefore interpret and therefore decide what to take from another agency and what not to take. I think, it somehow got lost in all these things. For example, when you read the charge sheet, okay, or a lot from the charge sheet is there in my book, it does indicate that, yeah, some people knew about a few things, but what did they do? They didn't take any action.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a particular raw officer who talks to me in the book, he does talk about his whole take on the threat perceptibility on the leader, on Rajiv Gandhi. And his whole his prediction was that, or his calculation was that, what he deduced from the intelligence he gathered is that the threat perceptibility will be at its peak when he's not in power. And the same information was interpreted in a diametrically opposite fashion by another agency, by his seniors. Forget another agency. His reports were not taken cognizance of, at least to the extent it should have been. Now, for example, if his security is reviewed, what happens most is the politics over it. But no proper analysis is done. So suddenly, because it is the political power who wields the maximum clout, they start influencing people, or investigators, intelligence agencies, sleuths, security agencies. They just, succumb to the pressure of their political bosses for sometimes personal gains. And when something like this happens, then the blame game starts. So there had been things happening around many corners, many sectors and compartments. But it's just that due to lack of coordination between different agencies, nobody bothered about it. I mean, for example, when Subramaniam Swamy writes a letter to the Congress party, he first spoke to Rajiv Gandhi about it. And Rajiv Gandhi says, "Nahi, mera kya hoga, don't worry, but thank you." And, why don't you just write a letter? He wrote a letter, but still nobody paid any attention to it. So I'm saying that you're right, there are a lot of things happened, but nobody was willing to join. He died. And after he died, everybody is good at joining the dots. And they feel, oh, ye to hua, wo hua, and all that stuff. For example, when you will read in my book that in Delhi, when Prabhakaran had come, what did he speak to his, I'm deliberately not giving everything out here, what is it that he spoke on phone? I mean, later on, those things, when you go through on hindsight, you feel, oh my God, why didn't I pay the right attention then? But nobody paid. And people say that public memory, we say that public memory is short. Memory of everyone is short. I mean, all the security agencies too. So yes, it is very unfortunate that we suddenly woke up to the situation only when he was no more.
Yeah.
So
Actually,
that's also kind of a visible, just to follow up to the same line, then I'll just, So I see the investigation also, like when the CBI takes over and start investigating, and there is a consistent override or opposition from, you can say, RAW or IB saying, no, this is not, there is some other way of investigation is happening. Till the first time, till the last one, Mr. Burma, Kiran Burma, who pulls that entire things in front of them saying this is where the LTT is being involved. So if you see like this is because of RAW and IB, they've missed certain part and now they wanted to cover up saying, okay, or whatever may be the reason.
I think as far as RAW is concerned, it was RAW's primary duty to know about, because they gather intelligence from overseas, right? They are not domestic, unlike the IB. It was a cover-up by them. I can tell you one thing. I can tell you one thing, that from day one, the moment it happened, the suspicion was always on LTT for everybody. So how can RAW continue to, press upon the fact that no, it's not LTT? It's ridiculous to think like that. But they did. And very soon everything came out of the closet. It was a cover-up by RAW.
That gives that feeling throughout the, like when you read through in detail, it gives there is a RAW and to great extent trying to save their skins, whoever may be the person. But anyway, it's a great reading. I think when you see those things on the series and web series, I think I know it will be like a.
I am waiting for it.
I have a last question. Maybe I'll bring it up something different. But okay,
I love your background, what you have used.
I just want to give the sense like, thank you. It's like great book.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanat. Yeah. So I remember I was in standard six standard six vacation when this news broke out early in the morning that Rajiv Gandhi is no more, is assassinated. 21st May 1991. We were getting ready to collect our reports that day, and my God, the silence or the kind of atmosphere, it was very uh, uh, what I would say, it still haunts that particular morning. It still haunts. We had a lot of guests because that was a vacation time, and we had my Mosi and her children in the house. And this news, someone from the neighbor, he came and broke out this news, and how it was, like, how it created that impact. So, do you think that is also going to be captured? You know, the incidents that happen in common man life when they came to know that Rajiv Gandhi is no more. Is it going to be captured in the web series, or are you good? Because this is a
Look, it's a little early to say that because writing is it's a time-consuming process.
right.
So it should be, if you really ask me, the writer, I can say that. Of course, it's not just its impact on the society, but to what extent I cannot say right now because it's all still being brainstormed. But I'm sure, I mean, it will be taken note of. There's no doubt about it.
Great.
Because I do remember the situation at that point of time, wherever, and it was extremely tensed, and especially with the memories of what happened in the aftermath of Mrs. Gandhi's assassination.
Yes. Yes.
And nobody wanted a repeat of that, of course, and the government took care of it. I mean, anticipating that something may happen, or just to preempt what had happened a few years ago. So yes, I guess that should feature.
Right. Debashish sir, do you have any questions for Anirudh?
Yeah, Anirudh, incident. I studied in Delhi, and Rajiv came to our institute, so I have seen him from a very close quarter. Believe you me, you must be knowing that 2 days before his visit, the entire area was sanitized. And on the day of the visit, all the tall buildings were full with snipers because he was a SPG protectee. Now, my question is that under this situation, although he may not be in power, but to do certain things, you need to go too close to him. And there are fixed protocols. And SPG doesn't allow anyone without proper verification to come to even nearby that protectee. So how could Danu got that access when it was conducted by Congress only, that meeting? That is first question. And I have one more question.
Sure. Any number of questions, I'm quite happy. See, when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, he was a leader of opposition. He was no longer in power. So obviously SPG was removed from his security. And that itself created a lot of controversy when in the regime of Vishwanath Pratap Singh as Prime Minister, SPG was removed. So when this happened, he didn't have that. And I think I don't really talk about destiny, but I had no option but to write about it in the book. That several things happened where you felt that his journey would have been truncated, but it didn't happen. So it's just that, as if something dragged him there, including that very last moment where Sub-Inspector Ansuya says, "Hey, I told you that you don't have a clearance," and he says, "Let everybody get a chance," not knowing that that very girl who his security didn't want there was the human bomb. I mean, what could be more tragic? Or I mean, this is something it sometimes sounds spooky to me, but it's a fact. So to answer your question, there was no SPG number one, but that's no excuse. That's absolutely, that cannot come in defense of. I think the Tamil Nadu police, the security they had provided with, the security they were supposed to make arrangements of, I think all these things are not really taken care of properly, because the way this meet and greet clearance was given goes to show a lack of sincerity when it comes to security. I mean, the event organizer was Congress Party, and to answer that, it was Congress Party. But then political parties don't understand what is security. That's the unfortunate part of it. I mean, that particular event, the political rally at Sri Perumbudur, was all decisions were taken by the Tamil Nadu Congress, and the police were taking orders from them. I think what prevented them from getting more and more metal detectors around the VIP enclosure. Then the person carrying the bomb, so much splinters, would have got detected. And this is basic, right? And again, I understand your concern. You have a very good question, and you're talking about a person. I'm not getting into whether SPG should have been there or not, because that's a different discussion. But I'm saying that a person with that kind of threat perceptibility on him, be it from the Punjab terrorists, be it from the Kashmir terrorists, be it from the LTT, the Tamil rebels, and he was on a soil where LTT ran havoc. Yet nobody really bothered. I'm not trying to put a finger on Tamil Nadu police, but I just don't understand that. For example, somebody told me from Tamil Nadu police that, it's not in my book though, that we had asked for 6 metal detectors. We got only 1. And we got those, portable metal detectors, some 3 or 4. But then VVIPs don't like being frisked. Now, what do I say? You don't like something, but the very person for whom you have come had to pay the price.
Okay. So my last question would be
Sure.
a kind of question of triangle. Now, it is well known that LTT was trained by both intelligence agency of India and Mossad.
Correct.
Because they didn't know how to fight. They had the will power against the atrocities of Sinhalese, but they didn't know how to fight. And I have some friends in Hyderabad, believe you me, who are in IPKF, and used to tell me that how they used to reverse the kind of Sten gun at the back of them on the shoulder and fire it in a reverse way by cocking it. So such kind of, yes, his team lost so many people. And he told me that we go to a small hut, a small girl is sitting innocently, a teenager. Suddenly, she takes out a Moser revolver from underneath the frock and fires at us without blinking her eyes. So such kind of training was imparted by us. On the contrary, after few years or maybe few months, I'm not limiting the time, the same India sends IPK to Sri Lanka to take care of the same, Tamil tigers. Don't you think it's a big mystery, which you have mentioned slightly in your book, but the whole thing, I mean, in the sense that if someone is your foe, and if someone is your friend, is your friend. But how your friend is turning into your foe and creating this havoc by executing finally the ex-prime minister.
I'll try my best to answer your question. So should I start?
Yeah.
Okay. See, LTT, as far as my knowledge goes, was trained by India way back in 82, 83. and I maybe some part of 84. That's all. It is all in 82 and 83. Much earlier. Later on, there might have been some training or something like that. Might have been imparting knowledge, but not really on that kind of a scale as far as my knowledge goes. But yes, in the early 80s, they were actually on our soil and they were trained. I think, see what happens in politics, there is no permanent friend, there is no permanent foe. Okay. India obviously wanted to control, these its borders, bordering countries, if there is any turbulence, anything like that. Ever since the Americans were given kind of a nod by the Sri Lankan government to come up with a naval base near the Trincomalee Island, the government of India took very serious note of it, both in Mrs. Gandhi's time, Mrs. Indira Gandhi's time, followed by Rajiv Gandhi. So I think what was happening, and as time progressed, and during the time of Rajiv Gandhi as the Prime Minister, the Tamil rebels, the whole situation was really hotting up, and the war really escalated between Jaffna and Colombo. So policies keep changing, your approach keeps changing, your relationship with your neighbors or anyone, diplomatic relations keep changing, and therefore decisions change. So I would say that, and in any Rajiv Gandhi went for the signing the Sri Lankan Accord, whereby India underlined this whole fact that LTT's whole philosophy of armed struggle is not going to work. And Colombo sought help from New Delhi, but Prabhakaran, being Prabhakaran, never liked it. Prabhakaran is someone who is like an epitome of a dictator. Every single decision is taken by him, okay? And he thought that there is no way I would be able to achieve any success if comes back with Rajiv Gandhi.